Welcome back to another episode of the Dental Business Hub, the show where we empower dental professionals with the business insights and strategies they need to thrive in today's competitive market. I'm your host, Monica Capelli, and today I am thrilled to welcome a very special guest, Cheryl McKenna from Merchant Advocate. Cheryl is a leading expert in helping dental practices save money on credit card processing, often without the hassle of switching processors. So whether you're looking to optimize your practice's finances or just want to understand the hidden world of payment processing, you won't want to miss this conversation. Let's dive in and welcome Cheryl McKenna to the Dental Business Hub. Well, Cheryl, I am so glad to have you on the Dental Business Hub. Welcome, and I can't wait for my audience to learn a little bit more about you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Sure, you're so welcome. Tell me a little bit about Cheryl and how you got into this fabulous industry you're in.
Yes, so in 1997, and I'm dating myself, but that's okay. It is what it is. In 1997, I graduated from CU, so University of Colorado in Boulder, Colorado, with a degree that you cannot use in the real world if you want to make a living and pay your bills.
Okay, basket weaving.
Pretty close. My best friend, who is a year older, we actually met when we were waiting tables at Village Inn in Boulder, Colorado. She had a degree in HR, and she had gotten a job in HR at a company that did merchant services. And so she said to me when I graduated, "Hey, the company that I work with is hiring." And I said, "Awesome, what do they do?" And she replied, "Merchant services." And I replied, "What is that?" And I've been in the industry ever since, I think because it's constantly evolving, and therefore, I mean, there's pros and cons to that, right? I mean, sometimes I say I might as well be a rocket scientist because of all the information I have in my brain, but it also is not boring. And
Right.
so it's captured my attention, and it allows me to be creative. And I come from an entrepreneurial family, so I absolutely understand that there's two challenges in business, right? There's first, which is you have to generate revenue. But then the second part of the equation is you have to retain as much of that revenue as possible or you're not profitable.
Exactly.
And merchant services, I feel, with helping people lower their costs is allowing them to, save money and make their business more successful. So I love
And
it.
it's one of those expenses you cannot avoid. If you're going to be in business, you better be taking credit and debit cards,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
With functionality for what you need, whether that's recurring payments or whatever. You need a processor and a system that works for your business. And I know, I believe I've heard there's some legislation pending or changes pending to the rates and things that credit cards can charge. Do you have any information on that?
So there's always pending legislation.
Oh, okay.
And I definitely don't want to get political, but I think we all understand how a law is made, how laws are made, and how messy that is. And when you think about the amount of money that is in the pockets of all the players whose interest it is to keep making money, so Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, and then of course all the big banks that issue credit cards, it's in their best interest to not really allow any changes to be made. And
Right.
so I'm sure they have just fabulous lobbyists.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, okay.
The
But
only change that was done in this century was in 2004, and that regulated the cost of debit cards, but it did not state that the processors had to pass those reduced costs on to business owners.
oh, it's
So,
very interesting.
yeah.
Okay, very interesting. So, okay, I've worked with you before. Some of my clients have as well. Very happy, I might add.
Thank you.
But our audience doesn't know anything about what you do.
Yeah.
Talk to me, Cheryl. Tell me about what you can do for clients and businesses out there?
Sure. Well, obviously, the focus is on merchant services. So, when you, as a business owner, have a client, a customer, a patient who pays with credit card, then the business is charged a fee for that. So, our goal is, and I work with a company called Merchant Advocate, we try and reduce costs without you having to change your provider. But if you want to change providers, or if you say want to pass the fees onto your patients, then we go to bat for you as a third party to find the best processor to fit your needs. Or if you want to stay with your current provider, we will make sure that your processor lowers your costs. So it's all about lowering your costs and making sure that you have the best merchant services to fit how it is that you need to do business, right? So Monica, you mentioned recurring billing. Some clients absolutely need that. Let's think about if you're an orthodontic practice. Well, you're running all those monthlies. Some practices like to have text to pay or a pay now button on their website. There are a lot of tools that can help lower outstanding AR, right? You could save the credit card on file with your patient's permission and save it securely so that if insurance comes back and maybe you didn't estimate things perfectly and there's a balance due and your patient says, yes, sure, just charge my card that's on file, then you don't have to send out a lot of statements, right? And dial for dollars. So there's just so many areas that merchant services can positively impact your business if it's set up correctly. And also on the flip side of that, it can negatively impact your business if you don't have the right pricing in place and the right program in place. So that's really what we do. Yeah. We're not a processor. We're processor agnostic. So our goal is we sit on the same side of the table as our clients to find them the best solution that is priced fairly.
And I've got some pretty happy clients who have worked with you, and I know you've saved them quite a pretty penny, and it adds up year over year. Those kinds of savings add up. And I know for a fact that there's a new trend out where people are passing on the cost of the credit card processing to their patients. I don't even know if you work outside of dentistry, but this is going across retail and everywhere else, even daycare centers, so it's a thing. And
it's a thing.
And there's two sides of every argument. So for one thing, why should we eat the cost? Some people say, oh, it's the cost of doing business, but it's a hefty cost. And then if you have rewards, credit cards, and all these other things, it just keeps adding up and adding up and adding up. So
or insurance reimbursements that are remitted on virtual credit card, right? They fax the number in. That's one of the most expensive ways to accept a payment, a reimbursement.
I've never seen that under 3%. Like, no.
You are correct.
When a practice is working with you, can they get that under 3%?
Absolutely, and we give them different options. So we can even help, say they're running, like some of the insurance companies will work through an organization like, say, a Zealous, right? Or in hospitals, it would be something like an Echo. And we have contacts there, and we can help negotiate those rates as well for ACH. So we can even help lower the costs for ACH reimbursement.
Wow, that's really nice. Okay, so the argument though, I'm on all kinds of dental groups, and it's an argument I would say once a week.
Oh, at least.
At least, right? I'm not on it every day, so I see it about once a week.
Okay.
Okay, I wish I was just had time to just be online all day and doom scrolling. But okay, so the argument, some people, we're just going to absorb it as a cost of business. Other people are going to be passing it on to their patients or their clients. Are you getting feedback from any of your clients about how that's going over with their client base?
So every practice is different. I've had practices that have implemented it and told me that they haven't had any issues whatsoever. I've had practices that have implemented and said it was the worst thing, and the patients had, not every patient, but there were certain patients that they had such a negative reaction, and it is difficult nowadays to find quality team members, right, that will stay.
Right.
So I have had practices that decided just it wasn't worth it.
I was going to say, I think you have to know your patient base, what they'll tolerate, but also you have to really know what you can tolerate as a business. And sometimes you just might have to watch a few patients walk out the door. It just depends on where you are financially in your business, on whether or not, like if you're heavy into PPOs and you're already taking massive write-offs, then you're taking, and you can't do anything about those. They're contractual. You can't even get out of them very easily, right? Then you have the credit card fees on top of that. I don't think people realize how overhead stacks up. And every couple of percentage points that you can save in any direction, it adds up over time. So it's definitely worth looking into. Would you agree with that?
I agree with a heavy note of caution. So because this has been legal in most states for quite some time, we've now been able to look at the merchant statements from practices that have implemented what I call is fee passing. So there's so many different names for it. There's so many different kinds. I just roll it under the umbrella of fee passing. So you're
Okay.
passing the fees to your patients or to the responsible party paying for that treatment, right? So we've had the opportunity now to look at these merchant statements. And what we're seeing is if a couple of things. First is practices aren't necessarily saving as much money as they are initially led to believe.
Oh,
Okay.
tell me about that.
And here's why. So you are allowed to pass the fees for credit cards.
Hmm.
So any patient that pays with a credit card, you can pass 3%. No more. Because the Visa has dictated that 3% is the most that you can pass. Visa is by far the largest percentage. It has the highest percentage of market share. Okay,
Okay.
about 65% of all the credit card transactions are done on a Visa branded credit card. Okay, in fact, the other day I went to go pay for something at Costco with a new credit card, and I was like, why will you not take this? Well, it turns out it's a MasterCard. It's the only MasterCard that I have in my wallet.
Right.
Not because I've asked for Visa, just that's how it's gone, right? So
Hmm.
Visa caps it at 3%. You can pass on 3%, but you cannot pass on the fee for a debit card because debit cards are considered cash because they come right out of your bank account. So, remember when I mentioned that the only real legislation that was passed was in the early 2000s and it regulated the cost of debit? Well,
Right.
debit cards really don't have that high of a wholesale cost anymore. But the processors who are passing the fee for debit on to the practice, because remember, the practice can't pass it to the patient for debit, are charging astronomical amounts. So 1.5%, 2%. And when you look at the statement, the practice is paying almost 2%, because then when patients are presented with the opportunity to either, I'm going to pay with a credit card and get tacked on 3%, or I'm going to pay with my debit card, what happens is there's a card shift. So if
Hmm.
you look at clients that we've had for a long time, maybe they were taking 70% credit card, 30% debit card, right? Their debit card was costing them 0.3%. Then they decided to pass the fees. Well, now they're taking 40% credit card, 60% debit card, and guess what? Instead of paying 0.3% for that debit, they're now paying 1.5 plus the other fees that you add on top of that. They're not saving as much money as they think. So
Wow. Is there a mechanism for combating that? Like, is you just have to be really wily and get someone like
you
you to
have to go with a
negotiate?
process that allows you lower cost to charge less for debit. So it's really important if you're looking at a fee passing service, if you think, hey, this is something that I want to do, costs are through the roof, reimbursements keep going down, labor's more expensive every year, and you decide that you should pass the fees for credit cards, my advice is this: find a really good service that provides you with the tools that you need but actually ends up saving you quite a bit of money. Because why would you put your staff and your patients through all of that
Right.
unless you're going to save a decent amount of money? So
Okay, so that you raise a good point here. Decent amount of money. Even if you're like refinancing a house, there's a tipping point where it's no longer worthwhile. How do you tell that with your credit card processing fees?
You just have to look at the statement.
Okay. What are
So
we
we
looking for? Is there a percentage we want to be saving before we pull that trigger?
Yeah, so
Or,
what I would do is the process that we go through is that someone sends us their merchant statement and we look at the current breakdown of debit cards versus credit cards. And then based on that, we have an idea of what the card shift is going to be. And then we could say, okay, if you implemented this program, this is actually how much it would probably cost you. I mean, we're estimating, well, we're pretty good at this. We've seen
Mhm.
thousands and thousands and thousands of statements. We've been in business since 2006. I can't even tell you how many statements I've looked at in my lifetime. I wish that I had like kept a check mark, I kept a list of it. But we can tell, and then we can give you a good idea. Hey, if you're doing $50,000 a month and this is your breakdown of card types now, then you can assume this is really what it's going to shift to, and therefore this is going to be your cost. And say you're currently paying $1,500, and then we're estimating that your cost would go down to $750. Then you make the choice, the educated decision. If $750 a month in savings, and that's just an example, is worth it for you to pass the fees to your patients and possibly lose some patients. And then, Monica, like you probably have data on what is the lifetime revenue of a patient in general. And so based on that, you can make your decision as to whether it's worth it. But fee passing is really the newest get rich quick scheme in merchant services.
Interesting.
Really can't, you just can't depend on what they're telling you all of the time. If you
Okay.
look at these, the the websites of these particular companies, they promise the sun, the moon, and the stars. It's like,
Okay.
pay $0 to accept credit cards. Well, yes, but you still have to pay money to accept debit cards, and you're
Right.
still going to have some monthly fees, and you're still going to have to pay for payment card industry compliance. So,
Oh yeah, that's a
yeah,
big one.
yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so again, it's a numbers game and it pays to hire an expert to help kind of guide you through that decision-making process. Is there
hmm
a threshold, like a lower number where it's not even worth looking? Like there's some tiny, tiny businesses, 10,000 a month maybe versus 500,000 a month. When is it a good
Yeah,
time to start looking at this?
I would say it makes sense to look at any practice or any business that's processing at least 25,000 a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's small, but it's
Yeah.
good. That's a healthy business usually.
And
It's,
of course, it
okay.
depends on their breakdown of, are they fee for service? Are they in network, et cetera, et cetera. Now, obviously, we can make the biggest impact. Like the more volume a business has, the more positive financial
Right.
impact we have. I mean,
Exactly.
that's just how it works. But yeah.
So, question for you, because we're in a side gig economy as well, and a lot of dentists have side gigs going on. So, if they have adapted your system into their practice, but then they open up maybe a consulting business or they're speaking or whatever, um, can they use this in other businesses or is this strictly healthcare related?
Oh, any business in the United States of America or Canada that accepts credit card payments.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Just
So
US
we
and
have
Canada.
clients in every state. And I can't think of one business type that we don't have. We work with a top five airline. We
Wow.
have NBA teams, large
Wow.
hospital systems, restaurant groups, mom and pop shops,
Was your average
B2B.
saving about like a half a percent, 1%? What can people, minimum would you say you can expect? How
Well,
good a
so
negotiator
we
are
break
you?
it down
This
into
is a
it's really
question.
a percentage of the fees. So, what
Okay,
fees are you paying? And obviously, if you're going to end up passing fees, that would be different than if you just want to. You can also come to us and say, here's my merchant services. I really like them, but I would like to pay less. Could you save me money so I don't switch processors? Okay,
right,
so in that instance, our average saving is 29% without them
Oh,
having to
wow.
change processors, learn something new, buy more hardware. So it's very low. I call it low hanging profit, like low hanging fruit. It's low hanging profit.
This is amazing because for dental practice, especially, so much is integrated into your practice management system. And
Bingo.
so changing is not easy. And some of them are quite proprietary. So if you run into a practice management software that has a proprietary payment system, and we all know who I'm talking about, how do you handle that?
Then we would, if the practice wants to stay integrated, and many of them do, then we would absolutely put in place the service save without switching, and we would negotiate with the practice's current processor. So we still need to look at a merchant statement. So everything starts with the most recent 2 merchant statements, because we have to have the data to really drill down into to understand what's possible. I mean, look, 30% of the businesses that we evaluate, they're not being overcharged. And those businesses, surprisingly enough, they're some of the folks that send me the most referrals, because they're like, wow, you guys are honest. You said that I was in a good spot. We're like, yeah, you are in a good spot. So our service is results based, meaning that we only get paid if we save our clients money.
Right.
So
Okay.
if they're in a good place, they're in a good place. But if
Okay.
they're forced to pay excessive fees, then that's where we come in. So we have to look at that statement to know if that's the case, or if a practice says, I just want to start passing the fees, we still have to look at that statement so we can determine, okay, if you decide to go this route, what's your expected savings going to be?
Now, here's the thing, though. Dentists and healthcare in general, pretty low risk industry. You have high risk industries that are paying really astronomical fees to take credit cards. Can you help high risk industries as well?
Absolutely.
Really? I'm surprised to hear that, because I thought by the very nature of their business, they'd be stuck with those kind of high fees because the risk is so high.
Well, so high risk business is interesting because a lot of times a processor will underwrite that business without historical data, because obviously it's a brand new client.
Right.
So once the processor has some history, like they can see how many chargebacks there are, if the client has a good record of paying their fees, et cetera, then a lot of times we can get the processor to look at this business again. They're not going to just do that out of the goodness of their heart,
No.
right? Hey,
No.
guess what? I'm going to lower my profit margin.
No.
So I'm just going to reach out to all my clients and lower my profit margin. And a lot of times a really good argument needs to be made, and understanding the processing inside and out. We know how to talk to these processors and point out the obvious, what should be obvious to them, but they decided just to not pay attention. And
Interesting.
the business doesn't understand how to have those conversations. So that's
Right.
really
And,
where
and
we
not
come
only
in.
that, they're already wearing a lot of hats. If you're a
That's
solopreneur,
true.
who's got time to sit there and haggle with your credit card? You just want to get some credit cards sliding
Yeah,
through that
you know
machine.
what? If you're a solopreneur or a small business owner, even if you own a larger business, I know many people, it's like, look, it's not on fire, so we're not going to pay attention to it, right? But again, our service is designed to, we handle 90% of the work. So it's a very small project for the
Okay.
business that can have a really good impact. And any money we recover goes straight to the bottom line.
Right. Yeah. How about that? It's straight up profit.
Yeah.
I love that. What do you want our businesses to know? How can they reach you? I love the fact that I've got happy clients who think I'm a gem because you're a gem. So
Oh,
I
thank you.
recommend
That's
you.
so nice. We really strive to have good communication and processes too. And the good news is that every client you've sent us has just been amazing. So thank you for that, for having great clients. Yeah, and anyone can contact me. email or telephone. So my direct line, do you want me to give it or you're going to put it in the
I'm going to put some
notes?
show notes in there, so I
Okay, yeah.
will put all that information for anyone who wants to reach out to you. But are you on the speaking engagements anywhere coming up soon? What's going on with your
So I'm
calendar?
going to be speaking at ADOM. I'm actually moderating a panel, so I'm not really
Oh,
speaking. I have really toned down on my speaking. My son is finishing high school, so I tell everybody, they're like, you should come to our study club or you should come to this meeting. Like, so I'm not going to be speaking really a lot until fall of 2026 is when I can start doing that. But I'm just going
yeah.
to be selfish and stay home as much as possible.
No,
With
you
my
know what? You only get a few
senior.
years with those little guys,
I
and
know,
even when they're
it goes
6 feet
so
tall.
fast. I already tear up when I think of him leaving. I'm like, I can't talk about it.
Oh, is he going off to school?
Well, he's moving out, and he's
Okay.
probably going to go to trade school. He wants to do
Awesome.
either underwater welding or cybersecurity. Right now, he's finished cybersecurity and he's taking Salesforce training. So we'll see. I'm not sure. He's
Wow.
only 17, so you know how that goes. They're just kind of
Yeah.
exploring all different things.
Yeah. But good for him for getting busy with his hands and his mind instead of sitting in a
Yeah,
classroom. It's good. And those
I
are
know.
great careers, both of them that he chose. So,
I know.
the thing is, if your kids are doing anything, just support them through it because we know it's going to change more than likely.
I lucked out. I'm just I mean I've changed definitely companies that I work with, but yeah, I've loved merchant services. So yeah, email me, give me a call if you just want to make it super easy. When Monica posts my email, just take the most recent two merchant statements, attach them to an email, shoot them on over to me, give me a couple sentences about what you're trying to accomplish. I'll take a look at that. If I have any questions, I'll let you know. But
Hmm.
then we'll meet via Zoom, and then we'll have a much more efficient conversation.
Absolutely.
But of course, if you have questions that you want to ask before sending me merchant statements, by all means, you can schedule. And Monica, you have that link that I sent to you for scheduling,
Hmm.
right?
I do. Yes, I
Okay,
do.
perfect.
I'll put
Yeah,
that
you
down.
can schedule a free consult with me and just tell me what you're trying to accomplish, and let's see if I can help you out.
Yeah, so full disclosure, I'm a referral partner for Cheryl, and um, please use the link that I'm going to be including in the show notes. But I also want to just ask one quick question. Turnaround time. So from the time, say, we submit the merchant statements and you make a decision to work with a particular client, what can they expect?
So the review of the merchant statements only takes a few days. And then once that happens, when we have the results, I'll send an email with my calendar link to schedule. And then it's really up to the business owner, or if they want to delegate that to a manager, to meet with me, whatever their time frame is. And then I'll discuss what I think we can help with. They can ask a lot of questions. And then depending on what they do, like if they want to pass fees and change merchant services, I mean, gosh, we could have that up and running in a week or two. If they want to save without switching, that's going to take a longer time because we have to complete the negotiation, the rates have to go into effect, and then a whole month of processing has to happen before we can see that merchant statement with the new rates and fees. But
Okay. And
again,
how often do they have to get a new machine? Because that's an expense too.
so I would say every 2 to 4 years, a business is going to have to get a new machine. Sometimes it's just because the machine stops working, but more often than not, it's because the payment card industry compliance encryption requirements change. And so the terminal that they have is not capable of that type of encryption. So that usually happens every 3 to 4 years. So yeah, every 2 to 4 years. And some of the terminals are not as reliable as others. So that's one of the things that we know from working with thousands of clients. So we can say, I wouldn't go with that one in
Yeah, I've had
particular.
one of those, and it's a pain in the neck
Yes.
when that
We
happens.
find that mobile unit, I won't say which one, just generally the battery stops charging after about a year and a half, and you're paying a lot of money for that. And then guess what? It won't charge anymore. So,
Well, listen, Cheryl, I've enjoyed our conversation. I am happy to introduce you to my audience. I am excited for the money you're going to be able to save our listeners. This is huge, and it's really kind of easy. Once it's in there, you just have ongoing savings. It's one of the easiest things you can do. You don't have to raise your prices. You may or may not want to pass them on. Again, it's an ongoing debate whether or not you want to pass them on, but I really believe that, Cheryl, you're going to be able to help our clients whichever way, their wind blows. So,
Absolutely. We are here to listen to what they are trying to accomplish and then help them get there.
yes, very wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me on the Dental Business Hub podcast. Cheryl, I look forward to talking to you again in the future when regulations change and there's things our listeners need to know. Come on back on. Tell us all
Oh,
about
I
it.
definitely will. Thank you,
You're so
everyone. Have a
welcome.
great day.